Today we are looking at Hallertau, one of Uwe Rosenberg's 2020 releases. Hey everyone, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Ashley.
And welcome back to Meeple Musings. Today we are taking a look at Hallertau, released last year by Uwe Rosenberg. In this video, we are going to give a quick overview of how the game works. We'll go over the components that come in the game, and then we'll give our final thoughts. In Hallertau, you assume the position of a chief of a village in the Bavarian region of Germany in 1850. You are going to try to bring the most prestige and fame to your village, which essentially means you're going to be collecting victory points like any other good Euro game.
So we're going to quickly just look at a brief overview of the game. So there's 6 rounds in the game, and each round has 10 phases, which sounds a little bit intimidating, but it's actually not. Everything happens in phase 4. So we're just going to quickly run through each of the phases and what they do. So phase 1 is when we have all of our, can't really see them on the board here, but when we have all of our workers out on the board. So you'll play a quadrant card depending on how many players are in the game, and then remove some of the workers corresponding to the card. And then you will take your farmyard card off of here. So you've got your 6 farmyard cards for your 6 rounds. So you'll take the first one off, put your workers on there, and then you move to phase 3. So that's where you'd activate your income cards, your bonus cards, that would give you things every round. And then you start placing your workers on the board. That's phase 4. And then so the first person gets to pay the least amount of workers, and then every person who goes on that spot afterwards has to pay one more worker. So
1, 2, and then 3.
Yeah, exactly. You start with 1 worker, then the next person would pay 2 workers, and the next one would pay 3 workers. So basically all your action spots will give you resources. So either planting or butchering or getting animals, and it all helps you to get resources. So then phase 5, you're going to take the next farmyard card off.
No, you'll take the one that you just took all your workers off of into your hand. So you are going to get a guaranteed card once per round, in addition to any more that you will gain.
Right, so then you can check and see if you could meet the requirements for it. Otherwise, you just keep it for later. So that's phase 5. Phase 6, then you move all your field plots here. Any of the empty ones, you move them up 1 row. One of them you can move twice. You get to decide which one. Then phase 7, you harvest all your planted fields, and then they move, all the ones that you just harvested move down 1 row. Then you would get your resources from your sheep. So you get 1 milk for each sheep that you have. And then phase 9. So then you would use your resources and your jewelry, which is another thing that you can get from your action spots in phase 4, to move your craft houses up as far as you can.
Yeah, and you pay different amounts of goods depending on what round it is. Yeah. And each craft house requires different goods. And then you'll move them up till they hit boulders. And once they hit boulders, you can spend tools to move those boulders, which then would allow you to move them farther up. And then your community hall, the big building, is going to slide forward till it touches the farthest back craft house. And then the new window, or the number in the window that's showing, is going to tell you the number of workers you get for the next round, which is pretty cool. Eventually, you'll push them up far enough so that they expose points for the end game scoring.
So the one thing we didn't mention was in the end of phase 4, if you've put out all the workers that you want, if you have any leftover workers, you can trade them 1-for-1 for tools.
Right. Yes.
And then that's what you use to move your boulders up.
Yeah. Right. After that, all the boulders are going to reset to be 2 and 4 spaces ahead of the craft house again for the next round. Then you start the round all over again, and you do that 6 times basically. So a cool thing about this game is how the sheep work. There are 3 action spots that give you sheep. 2 of them give you sheep as well as meat or hide, and the other one you have to spend milk to breed sheep in order to get them. But depending on what round it is, your sheep are going to go onto your round board sitting on top of your card if it's the first 3 rounds, and then on the last 3 rounds they go right down into your paddock. They are worth a point each at the end of the game, but the cool balancing act here is if they're on one of the cards, so if you get a sheep earlier in the game, when you have to draw that card, if that sheep is still there, then it gets discarded and you lose that sheep to old age, I suppose, is the thematic reason. But there are action spots that are going to let you move those sheep forward on the cards, and eventually if you keep pushing a sheep forward around, it'll end up in the paddock and be safe for the rest of the game. The sheep is neat because there's an action spot that is going to give you a wool for every sheep you have, and then at the end of every round, or after the worker placement action's done, you get milk for every sheep. So getting a lot of sheep can be a good strategy. Mm-hmm. You just have to be careful that you don't lose too many when you draw a card. Component wise, there's no complaints from me anyways. The good quality wooden resource tokens, nice and bright, colorful. The barley and the wool are kind of close in color, but hasn't been a problem yet.
No, because their shapes are totally different.
The shapes are different. The cards are fine. I sleeved mine, but you wouldn't have to do that if you didn't want to. They're good quality cards. Overall, no complaints on the components from me.
No, one thing with the components is that you don't have a specific player color. All your workers are the same dark blue. So you don't have to worry about mixing them up. They just go into the worker pool at the end, and then you take however many you need.
Yep. Final thoughts. The pros I've found with this game are the card combos. There's just a lot of really cool cards that can chain together, and you accomplish one, which gives you the resources to accomplish another, and so on and so on. The income cards are really cool. It feels awesome in phase 3 getting a whole bunch of stuff because you got the cards out earlier. Yeah. And they're also worth points, so that helps too. Drawing a new card and being able to fulfill it right away feels really good. It's really fun.
It is very satisfying.
The different decks are neat too, so you can swap up the cards for variability each game. There are 2 of the decks stay the same every game, but the other 2, there are 4 sets of each of them, so you can really get a different feel every time because the game revolves a lot around how these cards, the mini goals they give you and such.
And they kind of all play together, but they don't rely on each other too much, so that if you focused heavily on one type of card, say the market card, you'd still be getting points and benefits. You wouldn't necessarily have to have the other ones.
Yep. And the game scales very well with the worker removing mechanism. So if you play with 4 players, you just remove the top row of workers from every quadrant. But if you play with 3 or less, then you flip over the card and it tells you how many workers you remove which quadrants you remove workers from. So even like I've played this game solo a few times and it still feels like a nice tight puzzle. That you don't have it's not a win or loss. It's just like a score this many points or see how well you can score. So that part isn't the best solo experience, but I still get the nice efficiency puzzle playing this on my own. It scales pretty good. We've played it solo 2 and 3. Haven't tried 4 yet, but I don't anticipating it being much different feeling at all.
But yeah, other like with 3-player, it just gets a little more competitive as to towards the end of the round who wants to get the card spots and steal the rooster to be first player next turn.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it plays the same.
Yep.
Yep.
Cons wise, not really any major ones. Just kind of nitpicky stuff. I found that the way the resources are tracked, sometimes you can get a lot stacked in the same.
It can be really
number.
Confusing, especially when you're first playing the game.
Yeah, it could be, and also it can get bumped and knocked over, and then you have to remember how many of each good you had, if it was 4 or 5.
Yeah, because they use like a chart. It's not like you have 3 wolves, you have 3 wool tokens. You like count them up the chart.
Yeah,
instead.
You put your wool on number 3. So then when you have more than 5 of a good, you have to have 2 tokens on there, and it can become a bit confusing, but it's not too bad. It's just kind of a nitpicky thing.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when you're drawing the cards, you can get ones that don't combo well together, and it does kind of feel bad because you feel like you just keep drawing cards, spending the actions to draw the cards, and you just can't seem to find one, and the person across the table from you is just putting down a whole bunch of cards, and they're just chaining, and so that part could be, but that's just luck of the draw. That happens in every game. But overall, I personally rate this game a 9 out of 10, and I highly recommend it to anybody. How do you feel about this game?
I like it. I do really like it. I specifically like the farm theme to it and how it works all together really nice. And I just love worker placement anyways. So I'd probably go like, an 8.5.
Yeah.
9, somewhere in there.
You only played it twice so far.
I've only played it twice, but I don't really have any major concerns or major criticisms. I have no issue playing it again.
Yeah, you're right. I do like how the farming works too. The crop cycling is really cool. If you leave a field fallow, it gets better, and if you plant a field, it decreases in value. So if you have enough fields, you can keep getting efficient planting seasons out of it. But yeah. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it, and definitely check this game out if you have not yet.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, thanks for watching.